Thanks for checking out this movie review video. This is for the 2024 film Strange Darling, and I actually rented it through Fandango at home for $6.35 with tax included, so definitely worth it if you have any interest in this film. I had heard a lot of buzz about this film. A lot of people saying, man, this is one of the best horror films of the year. I'd heard people say this is one of those types of movies where you don't want to know a whole lot about it, just go into it not knowing anything, and it's wild, it's surprising, it's phenomenal, blah blah blah. I didn't like this movie nearly as much as a lot of people did. There are things I definitely really enjoyed about it, and there are some things that I really did not. So obviously I will break that down in this review with no spoilers. And it's yeah, I mean, it was interesting at the least. Like, the concept, I like the concept, it's just some of the execution wasn't all on board with. But anyway, this one is written and directed by JT Mollner, who did Outlaws and Angels, which I have not seen. Quick synopsis of the film. It's a little bit hard to give too much of a synopsis, but it's basically about a man and a woman who end up in a very tense situation. From the very beginning of the film, it's a woman running from a man, and the film is then about what is the backstory here. The woman is kind of bloodied a little bit. She looks like she's been bashed up, and the man is very angry and after her. And that's as much as I'm going to say about that, but it's about finding out how did you get to this point. And there are portions of the film that come after that, and there's stuff before that. So basically, I will tell you this doesn't ruin anything about the film because you know it immediately. It is broken up into 6 chapters, and the chapters do not go in order. So it's a very interesting telling of, you get your initial scene in the beginning, just kind of setting things up, hooking you in, and letting you know, now we're going to find out what really is behind this. You know, where things go from this scene, but also what happened before the scene. So it's a great concept. I love that idea, especially when it's a kind of weak script, in my opinion. I don't think the script was that great, so I think it was a very smart move to take a script like this and, present it out of order in order to make it a lot more interesting, make it way more of a mystery. Because if you watch this film and then you think, okay, if it was done in a linear manner, it would not have been nearly as interesting. It really would not have. It makes it more suspenseful, more mystery-driven with the way that Mollner chose to do it. So I like that choice a lot. The beginning has text that tries to make this a based on true events type film, which is very hokey. I hate when films do that type of stuff. This is not based on true events. It's a very fictitious thing, and I just hate when films try to play into that whole thing. This film didn't need that. I don't understand it. This film didn't need it. There are other aspects that kind of pop up in this film that tie it into the world you're in, as like a true story within that world. So we don't need it to try and relate it to the real world. I don't know. It was a weird choice. The film is broken into 6 Jeez, one of those days. 6 chapters, and it starts with chapter 3, which lets you know it's non-linear, obviously. I wonder where they got the idea. I'd be interested to know where Mollner pulled this from, but like I said before, it was a smart choice for this particular script. The score in this is beyond ridiculous. It is annoying. The composition is so grandiose. It outdoes things. It makes the film feel over the top and ridiculous, and in some ways the film is over the top and ridiculous, so maybe that was a conscious choice, but I think it doesn't help the film. I think it would have been a lot better if the filmmaker had kind of approached this from a more serious angle, because having a score like this, it's just not helpful in my opinion. It's not only the composition is so grandiose and ridiculous, but it gets cranked up to 11 in so many scenes, which is one of my biggest pet peeves with films, is when a filmmaker is screaming at you with a score saying, hey, you're stupid, I need to bash you over the head with this mood in this scene to tell you how to feel, you idiot. Hate it. It's so insulting to audience members. It's way more effective to just have a low-level score or drop the score out altogether and just let people feel. Let people figure out a scene. Plus, letting the sound design shine is a lot more effective at things like building tension and making things feel like dread-filled and scary, in my opinion. There isn't much dialogue for the first 20 minutes, which I'm a fan of. I love that type of thing. It adds more mystery to what's going on. It makes you focus even more on the actions of the characters instead of being kind of distracted by the words. So I love the fact that Mollner decided to do just like 20 minutes of no dialogue. I'm a fan of that. I love it. I know not everyone's going to like that stuff. I'm a fan of that. There is some interesting camera work in this. So from a cinematography standpoint, it's pretty solid. Some really interesting camera angles, some interesting camera movements. So from a visual standpoint, this is an aesthetically pleasing film. One of the other things I really love is the way they play with color in the film. Just keep a lookout if you haven't watched the movie yet for certain scenes that are just like drenched in certain colors. And I just kind of like what they're trying to tell you with the colors. So, creative stuff like that, artistic stuff like that, from a visual standpoint, I typically really appreciate. So I really like that aspect of the film. It is pretty slow, unfortunately. For the type of film this is, and what ends up happening, I really want it to be a lot more engaging. It gets pretty slow. There's a lot of lulls in it, unfortunately. Runtime probably could have been taken down some. It's like just a little bit over an hour and a half. I think it's like an hour and 33, 35 minutes, somewhere in there with credits. So it's not super long, but it feels kind of slow, unfortunately. There are some scenes where there is some dialogue that you're just like, we don't need all this. Let's cut this down. One of those types of films that would have been a lot better, closer to the hour mark than the hour and a half mark, in my opinion, personally. The acting ranges from pretty good to pretty rough. So the two main characters that are focused on in the film, the guy and the girl I was talking about in the beginning, or man and woman, sorry. They do a pretty good job. Actually, they do quite a good job. I really enjoyed their performances in particular. Everyone else, rough. Everyone else, rough performances. But here's the thing. I feel like this is kind of what you get when you have kind of a lower budget independent film, which you can definitely tell this is. So, yeah. So for that reason, they can't go big with like practical effects and special effects, all that type of stuff. But also, when you're having a low budget independent film, not everyone in it typically is going to be an awesome actor or actress. So good on Mollner finding the two leads. That was important. That was very important. The character interactions are awkward, and that's partially the not so great dialogue and partially the acting. I think this was a little bit a effort by the director to have things be a little bit awkward between characters, which is kind of a cool feel for this type of story. But it goes a little bit too far with that. And again, I think that a lot of that comes from how the dialogue's not very well written, in my opinion. In general, I just don't think the script is great on this one. I think maybe having someone else take a pass at it, or having someone else write it all together, or, just do a collaboration with someone. Just have someone check it, basically, Proof this thing. The final scene goes on way too long. Going back to the whole pacing issue with this film, that final scene, I understand that they wanted you to kind of sit with something for a bit, but you sit with it for a bit, it has its impact, and then you keep sitting, and you keep sitting, and you keep sitting, and you keep sitting, and you're just like, are we going to get something else here? And you don't. And it's just like, okay, I don't know why we could have just ended this at that point, because we got it. It just gets to a point of being just too much, just too ridiculous. And this film kind of is ridiculous, but like I said, things I quite liked, things I quite didn't like. But overall, out of 5 stars, half stars in play, I'm going to give it a 2.5 star rating. I'm very in the middle on this one. Would be very interested to see what Mollner does next. I would check that out because, early on, filmmakers aren't going to be as good as they are after they've gotten a bunch of films under their belt. And I think Mollner could be one to watch for sure, because there are a lot of good things in this film. Big thing for the next film, script. Really focus on that script, in my opinion. But would love to hear other people's opinions on this, because like I said, I heard a lot of people saying it's awesome. Let me know. Go ahead and put it in the comments. Always interested in hearing other people's perspectives on these films. Do me a quick favor, hit subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. If you do want to pitch in monetarily, I have super thanks enabled. I have memberships that's linked in my description, so you can check out what levels and what you get for the levels and everything. Nominal fees. And thumbs up on this would be great to help me with that YouTube algorithm, and you can hit the notification bell button if you want to know when I'm putting up new videos. So regardless, thank you for taking your time to watch this. I do appreciate that. And until next time, keep it brutal.